All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we are now going to recap the late window games, and I'll give you my thoughts on that. But once again, I want to remind you guys to donate or tip and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show. And for bonus coverage materials that are not covered by this broadcast, make sure to go to patreon.com and search up GSMC Sports Network. And that is where you can find all the exclusive content from all of our podcasts here on the GSMC Sports Network. So now let's get into the late window of games, moving right along. So we'll start off actually with the game that I highlighted last week, and that was the Browns and the Lions. You know, the Bucks and the Lions. Sorry. So obviously going into this game, both teams are in first place. Baker Mayfield was having a good season. And the Lions, of course, they've been rolling offensively, and the defense has been coming along. But, I thought, hey, this game could be a competitive game. It could be close. I would say that both defenses played, well in this game because, the final score ended up being 20-6. The Lions just, I keep saying the Browns. The Bucks offense just really couldn't get anything going offensively. Jared Goff had a very good game, 353 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. But yeah, the Bucks were good against the run. Like when I was previewing the game last week, the Lions only ran for 40 yards. Their leading rusher was actually Craig Reynolds, who actually had to be who had to run the ball because David Montgomery left with an injury. So, they only ran for 40 yards. Amon-Ra St. Brown, he made his return, and he didn't miss a beat. 12 receptions for 124 yards and a touchdown in this game. He got a great block to score that. I think it was the 27-yard touchdown. So that put the Lions up 10-3. And Jameson Williams also had a touchdown in this game, 2 receptions for 53 yards. And, it was that 45-yard touchdown. Josh Reynolds, 50 yards receiving. Laporta, 36 yards receiving. Yeah, so Jared Goff really spread the ball around in this game. He looked good. But, they only won by 2 scores. They only put up 20 points. So the Bucs defense, tried to keep it, as close to best they could. But the Bucs offense just really couldn't get anything going. Baker Mayfield went 19-37, 206 yards, no touchdowns and a pick. Bucs are not a good running team. They only ran for 46 yards. Rashad White was their leading rusher. Chris Godwin was their leading receiver, had 77 yards receiving. Mike Evans had 49. Bucs offensively just couldn't get anything going. So you know what that game showed me is listen. The Lions, they are the third best team in the NFC right now, but you know what? Based off of what happened yesterday, anything can happen. They could definitely, although it's going to be very tough, they could definitely beat the Eagles and the Niners because they have such a good offense. The defense continues to improve. If you force Jalen Hurts into turnovers, the Jets showed you what you got to do against them. So, and then for the Niners, obviously it's a lot different when they don't have McCaffrey and Debo moving forward. But listen, the Lions continue to improve. 5-1 now. Like I said, the defense is looking good. Anything's possible. But for me, the Bucs, they could win the South, but I don't really expect them or anybody from the South to do anything when they make the playoffs because it's just not a good division. And, the Bucs against the Eagles and the Lions, they just they haven't looked good. Although they did look good against the Saints, but how have the Saints looked? So yeah, that game kind of showed me a lot, in terms of the Bucs. And listen, still a long season. They got a lot of winnable games, like I said, but against these better teams, they have not delivered. So So 20-6, Lions improved to 5-1, and they're actually tied now with the Eagles and the Niners now. So hey, listen, one of those teams slips up again, Lions could pass them, and, hey, maybe they end up with the 1 seed somehow. But, again, we're still ways away from that, but, it's something to keep an eye on. So we move on now. Let's get into the Rams and the Cardinals. So the Rams, it was close for a little bit. Actually, the Cardinals were winning at the half, but then the Rams shut them out in the second half, 20-0. They end up winning 26-9. Stafford, 15-24, 226 yards and a touchdown. Karen Williams had a great game, 20 carries for 158 yards and a touchdown. Cooper Kupp had a great game, 7 receptions for 148 yards and a touchdown, so he hasn't skipped a beat after missing some time to start the year. And the Cardinals, Josh Dobbs, 21-41, 235 yards and a touchdown. They ran the ball for 130 yards. Dobbs had 47 yards rushing. Ingram had 40. Williams had 36. DeMarcado had 11. Their leading receiver was their tight end, Trey McBride, for 62 yards. And Michael Wilson had 62 yards receiving as well. But, yeah, Rams improved to 3-3. Cardinals 1-5. But it was kind of a little bit of an ugly win for. I mean, the Rams they were great in the second half, but it didn't look good for a little bit. I think this team could still be a wild card team. They got the Steelers, the Cowboys, at the Packers. So, I mean, all the games they have left on their schedule are winnable. But, I still think they're going to be a team that might be like, maybe get to 9 wins. That might get you in, but I don't know. They still look, they don't really look that good to me. I mean, they ran the ball well. Cooper Kupp looks great. But, I still have my concerns with this team moving forward. But, they got talent on the team, of course, but, still not great as of right now. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. So then we get into the Patriots and the Raiders. Patriots dropped to 1-5. Raiders get to 3-3. Jimmy Garoppolo actually went to the hospital with a back injury, so Brian Hoyer was playing in this game. The Patriots, they kept it close, but again, they just couldn't get the job done. Mac Jones, another bad game, 24-33, 200 yards, no touchdowns and a pick. They ran the ball for 83 yards. They actually got so Ezekiel Elliott, I think, had a 74-yard touchdown, and it was called back. So that just goes to show you how it's going for the Patriots. Ramondre Stevenson and Zeke both had touchdowns. Well, Zeke ended up with the touchdown, but yeah, they both had touchdowns. Their leading receiver was Kendrick Bourne, 10 receptions for 89 yards. But yeah, really no other production. Gesicki had 28, Stevenson had 24. They just really, again, look a mess offensively. And Jimmy Garoppolo, 14-22, 162 yards, a touchdown and a pick, and yeah, he left the game and had to go to the hospital, the back injury, so I don't know what his status is going to be moving forward. We'll talk about it later in the week. And then, of course, you have Brian Hoyer, who had to come in the game, 6-10, 102 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Josh Jacobs, 25 carries, 77 yards in this game. And then, actually, their leading receiver was their rookie tight end, Michael Mayer. He had 5 receptions for 75 yards, so they continue to try to get him more involved in the offense. Jacoby Myers continues to have a good season, 5 receptions for 61 yards and a touchdown. Tucker had 2 receptions for 57 yards. And Devontae Adams, only 2 receptions for 29 yards. I mean, I know he's dealing with an injury, but, I mean, he's just been a non-factor these last couple of games. So, is it a mix with injury? I honestly, for me, I hope Devontae goes somewhere else where, like, a team actually uses him. And also because the Raiders, I mean, listen, they're 3-3, but, the quarterback situation is a mess right now. So, but yeah, Patriots dropped to 1-5. Raiders are 3-3, and they got the Bears next, so they can get themselves back to over 500, even without Jimmy Garoppolo. So we'll see what happens. And then as for the Patriots, next week they play the Bills. So, and then they play the Dolphins after that. So it's not looking good right now in New England. So now let's get into for the last 6 minutes here of this segment. Let's talk about the Bills and the Giants. So I said the Giants had no shot at winning this game. I didn't see a scenario in which they were going to win this game. But they actually were winning this game at one point, believe it or not. They were up 6-0 going into the half. They forced some turnovers. Gabe Davis fumbled. Josh Allen threw an interception. So, it was looking good for a little bit. Even though, like, that entire time, I still was like, there's no chance the Giants win this game. There's literally no chance. Now, they got the ball again, driving. They were down in the red zone. And they were at the 1-yard line with 14 seconds left. And for some reason, there was miscommunication between Dable and Tyrod Taylor, who actually did not play that bad in this game, although, again, the Giants only put up 9 points. The Giants could have just, passed at least 3. You had enough time to just, throw a couple balls in the end zone and not get anything, and then, hey, kick the field goal. But what ended up happening was, I guess Tyrod audibled, so they ran the ball, and they weren't able to clock it in time to kick a field goal, and the Giants went into the half 6-0, and at that point I said the Giants are definitely not winning this game now, because that's going to come back to bite them. And sure enough, the Bills, they outscored the Giants 14-3 in the fourth quarter. So the Bills didn't even score till the fourth quarter. Josh Allen really didn't. In the fourth quarter he played well. 169 yards passing, 2 touchdowns and a pick. They ran the ball for 128 yards. James Cook had 71. Latavius Murray had 45. Scary situation in the game. Damian Harris actually got put on the stretcher, taken to the hospital with an injury. And, scary situation there. And obviously, the Bills, they dealt with a similar situation last year with only the difference is Damian Harris was, gave the thumbs up. What happened last year with DeMar Hamlin, he was unresponsive. But they, obviously were able to, revive him, and everything's okay now. And he was emotional on the sidelines because he was inactive for this game. But that was a scary situation there. But, Damian Harris gave the thumbs up, and that's, always a great sign. Scary situation there. And then going back to the, the stats of the game. So Diggs ended up having a good game, of course, 10 receptions for 100 yards. I thought he would have got 200. But the Giants defense actually played well in this game. And then obviously the big controversy was at the end of the game. The Giants were driving, they got the ball back, and they were driving down the field. And, they get to the end zone, and there was a flag, so that set the Giants up. But they couldn't get the ball in the end zone. Well, no, they actually, ended up playing an untimed down. So they got the ball at the 1, and, Taylor threw it up top to Waller, and they didn't call pass interference or holding, nothing. And the player on the Bills was not looking. Grabbed Waller's jersey, was grabbing his arm, and refs didn't call it. And that was how the game ended. So, with the NFL, when stuff like that happens, and especially on national TV when everybody sees it, it's not a good look. It's not. And that's why when you have people saying that, there's some influence on these games, that's the reason why. And you had the back judge who was right there, who saw the play and did not throw the flag. Now, for me, the reason why the Giants didn't win this game is because of what happened in the first half. You should have kicked the field goal, went up 9-0, and that drive would have been to kick the game-winning field goal to win 15-14. But that wasn't the case. So that, was, to me, was a typical Giants loss. You play competitive against a superior opponent who should blow you out. You're winning the game at one point. Then that opponent comes back, beats you, and it's because of a boneheaded mistake that you made earlier in the game that ends up being the difference in the game. Now, of course, the Giants got to put up more than 9 points, but yeah, that ended up being the difference in the game. I knew it because last year was an anomaly. This year, the Giants are showing who they are. What they are is not a good football team. Then you had them fighting with the Bills the whole night. You had Dexter Lawrence and Leonard Williams and Kayvon Thibodeau getting in it with the some of the offensive guys on the Bills. The team is a mess right now, and they're 1-5. And the scary thing is Tyrod Taylor actually, other than how Daniel Jones played in the second half against the Cardinals, Tyrod Taylor really didn't do bad operating the offense. He did a better job than Daniel Jones has. The Giants didn't turn the ball over in this game. He only passed for 200 yards, but there was no turnovers in this game for the Giants. Saquon Barkley actually, he was okay last night. He got a lot of carries, 24 carries for 93 yards, had a couple of big runs in this game. Their leading receiver was Darius Slayton. Wan'Dale Robinson didn't have a bad game. He had 62 yards receiving. Waller had 43. The Giants are just not a very good team. Daniel Jones is not the answer at quarterback. He's just not. And again, it's hard to evaluate when the team's not very good, but I thought the offensive line did a good job last night protecting Tyrod. He didn't get killed like I thought he was going to. So, but yeah, Giants lose, Bills win. They improve to 4-2, and the Giants drop to 1-5, and they play Washington next week. So we'll see what happens. Tyrod continues to play, or if Daniel Jones comes back. So we'll see what happens there. But with that, we're going to take our final break of the show. And then when we come back, we are going to discuss the last game of Week 6, and that is between the Cowboys and the Chargers, as the Cowboys try to get back on track from that rough loss against the 49ers last week. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.